Hello, family, and welcome to Amazing Parents Network. I am the host of this show. My name is Ali Lankarani, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer. I'm a clinical neuroscientist, and I am very happy that you have taken the time to be here with us tonight. We have dozens of experts that are going to be presenting in the upcoming months. These are called the Family Education Series. Please invite your friends and family to come and benefit from the resources and the expertise that is going to be presented here. We're glad to have you here. We're glad to have our experts. Enjoy tonight's presenter. Thank you.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to the second session of Rock Every Speech You Make. I am going to go through the 10 tips today that I learned from my grandmother, a very famous worldwide speaker. She spoke mostly across the United States with her own book that she wrote in 1945. And she sold her book like hotcakes to women who flocked to auditoriums to hear her speak. This is before there was a lot of television speaking, and people would go to auditoriums to get and spoke in front of 200, 2,000 women at every stop. And she totally sold her book like hotcakes to those women and taught them classes and coached them. It was amazing. What she did back then is what many of us are trying to do now, to write our book, to speak, and to sell from our book our speech. Of course, many people are writing other kinds of books, novels, and memoirs, and all kinds of other books. I work on all kinds of books: science fiction, novels, memoirs, children's, business books, show your expertise, all of that kind of stuff. And so today we're going to go through the 10 tips that my grandmother used to teach women all over the world. And it will be, it's everything I've used in my speaking career. When I first started speaking, I was a terrible speaker. I was in junior college, and my grandmother knew the head of the speech department, and she got me onto the speech team. And I wasn't very good. I was also on the debate team, I was a lot better at debate because it's arguing, and as kids, we would argue with our parents. And I was very logical. I tested higher in logic, analytical, and deductive reasoning than almost anyone else at this place where they tested you for aptitude. And anyway, but when I was on the speech team, I wasn't very good. I wasn't very confident. And I think a lot of that was because I didn't practice as much as I should have. So that's like number one tip, is to practice your speech. In fact, you must practice your speech out loud. A lot of people think, oh, I've got it. It's in my head. I did that once. And my speech totally failed because my voice, I think that was pretty funny. And so I never, ever, 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 ever go on stage or online to make a talk unless I practiced it out loud, even if I'm just doing it by using my notes, and when you're using your notes, you only want to do bullet points. So I'm going to start. I'm going to show you her 10 tips. And, a lot of them will seem very basic, but if you put them together, you will rock every speech you make. I speak once or twice a week all over the world online. When COVID hit, I had to reinvent myself because I was teaching for school for adults, my own classes, other people's classes. I was often invited to teach at different arenas. And so I had to learn the tech, and I had to get on Zoom. So I started speaking once or twice a week, I think for the last 2 or 3 years. Pictures of and that people make from speak with them. I say to save those pictures. and go to my other 10 tips. And also, I think I still have it on chat. I should, let me stop share screen and put it in chat, the 10 tips. I think I have them here well to you, so you can sign up for them anytime you want. All right. So, this is also a lesson in how to make a wonderful, wonderful mentor. And she taught me how to make lead magnets. And she always said, the first as an introduction to yourself, and are you giving them the 10 tips, the 5 tips, the free book? Are you the expert? You want to establish as the expert. So in this page I do, no fear, Coach Mila is here. Who is Mila? I explain a bit. And then I'm from a family of speakers. My grandmother, Jessie Haver Butler, was on the front lines of the suffrage movement in Washington with Carrie Chapman and Alice Paul, women lobbyists. So she was a great speaker even back then. And then I talk about my passion of public speaking, which I think I love public speaking as much or more than writing books, if you can believe that. If you knew me at all, I love writing books and helping people write their books. And then I want you to tell me about your book and what you want to speak about. Do you want to speak about a book? Do you want to speak about a passion? Do you want to speak about your expertise? Speak to sell is one of the biggest arenas people are entering right now to do your talk and sell from your talk, or as you know from doing already. Then you put your contact in. And on every page, you put the name of your company down here at the lower end, from pen to published, milajohansen.com. You put your contact in on every page. And then you want to do 2 or 3 pages of your 10 tips or whatever you're doing and giving away. And then you want to do a closing. So that's what my mentor taught me to do for lead magnets. So quick lead magnet tutorial for you right there. So anyway, here you go. Contact me with questions anytime. Here's talk to me and we can make a date to talk. I actually have a booking link for you as well. And so that will get you right straight to me and answer your questions. Start coaching with me. I coach a lot of people on their public speaking, especially when they're getting ready for a talk. One of my clients was going to speak at Harvard, and she really needed the confidence boost and the tools and these 10 tips. And then she rocked her speech, which was wonderful to hear about as her teacher coach. She's still with me. She signed up again because now we're working on her book to speak from. So anyway, the 10 power tips to rock your speech. Follow these tips to speaking success. So you want to, first of all, give a concise intro about yourself to the host for your introduction. The host or person who invited you to speak, either on a podcast or on a live stage or on a summit, will usually let you know how long your bio should be. So you should have them prepared. I have mine prepared and write them in third person because they're going to be reading it. Like Mila Johansen is a writing, publishing, and public speaking coach, and she has joined us today. That's how they're going to be reading it. Only once in a great while has someone asked me to put it in first person. So I write my bios ahead of time and keep them on my website, on my desktop too. And what I do is I write a long one and then I condense it to a medium one, and then I have a short one. And then number 4 is your elevator pitch. That's like 1 to 2 sentences max. Usually they say it should be 20 words. And your elevator pitch is what you would tell someone on a ride up an elevator. That's all the time you have to get them interested in you or your project. So, an elevator pitches can be the most difficult thing you write. I once took a class 4-week class in elevator pitches. And I thought, oh, I have this down. I'm good at that. Boy, I had a lot to learn. So you really want to work on your elevator pitch. And one way to do that is to look at your television when you go up to info and the little description they have of the movie or the TV program you're watching. Those are really good to study, especially if they're just a little longer than just a few words. And study those, copy a few, and then copy them. I tell people to copy everything because when you copy something, it won't look the same, but you'll be learning from it. And believe you me, people will be copying you also. That is what is going to happen. So anyway, so generally a bio for most talks should just be 3 to 5 sentences. With your name dropping, everybody you've met that's famous or you've worked for or what you've done, your credentials, your achievements, hit all the highlights. This is the time to brag about yourself because you don't, who will? And yes, I just took a class yesterday and the woman who was teaching it said, shout it out, brag about yourself because everyone will be waiting to hear from you. Sorry about that. Someone calling. They want to keep my timer for time. Anyway, so that's really important that you work on your intro ahead of time. And then every time I'm speaking for a different group, like maybe it's women and maybe it's historians, because my grandmother's book From Cowgirl to Congress is a women's history book. And then or maybe I'm talking about my favorite talk, From Poverty to Abundance, my journey. Then I change the bio just enough to suit that crowd and that audience. Like sometimes I speak about homeschooling, so then I talk about my teaching career with children. I put that in. I normally don't put that in for just regular talks, but when I'm speaking about homeschooling, then I put that in how I homeschooled my own daughter through 8th grade and how I taught homeschoolers for years and years. So you want to have it ready, like it's like a shell on your desktop, and then you change it for each talk that you're going to give. Snappy titles that will draw attention. So let's say you're speaking at a summit with maybe 40, 50 other people, and you want people to come to your talk and you want to draw them in. So your title will do that for you. You're going to need a title and a subtitle. And if your title is esoteric, then your subtitle needs to be an explainer. If your title explains what you're talking about, then your subtitle can be a little more esoteric, interesting to draw them in, creative. So you need to create an enticing title to immediately grab their attention and get them to show up to your talk. And even for podcasts, where you're going to be the featured speaker, you want the title to be interesting so that they will join the podcast and that the podcaster will be happy they invited you to speak at the podcast. So these are things you need to think about. And what you can do, start writing down titles and change them up. Brainstorm with yourself. Write them in so many different ways. And then maybe run by some friends, or if you're in masterminds, or you're in a group that everybody throws in their information to get ideas, run it by people and ask them, because often a colleague or a friend or a family member will actually come up with a better title for you. And no one liked the name. No one said, that works. So everybody kind of went, I don't know. And so finally, I was sitting around brainstorming with my husband and a friend at lunch, and he's very witty and funny. And he said, well, why don't you just call it From Cowgirl to Congress? And I went, bingo, wow, that is great. It has 2 really good trigger words, cowgirl and Congress. And so that became the name of my book, and I would have never thought of it. So you want to brainstorm. Brainstorming is a power tool. It will get you everywhere you want to go and get you better ideas than you can just think of in your head. Often I will brainstorm with myself, and the longer I think about something, the more the ideas gel and get better. So you're going to want to also have more than one title. At first, it's okay to have one, but you want to have like three, maybe five, so people can choose from them. Or let's say I have one, homeschool, make homeschool fun and easy for all. That's one of my titles. Then another one is publishing your book is easy as one, two, three. I don't know if those are provocative, but those are my titles. My journey from poverty to abundance. So you want to have about 3 to 5 talks that you have ready for different groups that may find you or you may find them on the big list I'm going to give you of where to find podcasts, where to find summits, how to get your profile in front of organizers and people who are putting on these events. Now, your subtitle. It's really important to have a provocative subtitle too, because it is the selling point. So you want to let your audience know what your talk's about, either in your title or your subtitle, and do not leave them in the dark. Because I see a lot of talks that are very esoteric and I'm not sure what they're talking about. We want to know exactly what you're talking about. And we also want it to be a snappy title. And the best way to do that is go on to summits and check out the titles other people are making. And then kind of work yours around some of those. And look at the ones that you think are snappy and would draw you in and that would draw other people in, you know? So you want to, again, even maybe go on to Amazon and look at book titles. And but I would go on summits, maybe podcasts, and see what the guests are calling their titles. That's a great way to do it, is to study other people. And I always say copying is a great tool. And I don't mean copy verbatim, but just kind of the idea. When I first made my first lead magnet, I took one I liked of somebody's that was kind of long, and I gave it to the person who was helping me and said, I like it like this, but shorter. And so we made mine. It's completely different than anyone else's, but I got the idea from looking to see what other people are doing. I always say that with book titles too. Go and look at book titles on Amazon, look at book lengths, open 10 books at your house and see what they did with their design inside the book. You know, you want to do that with everything. You want to make a little bit of a study of it. Number 4, use quotes. If you quote famous people, you are tied to them and it gets people's attention. I usually use a quote to start a talk, unless I'm asking a provocative question. And especially, I always use one to end a talk. I will often end with, Oprah tells us that we have to reinvent ourselves until the end. Then give a long pause. Sometimes I'll pause before the last word for emphasis, things like that. So you want to think of quotes, like get a list of quotes that would fit you. I'm always trying to inspire women, and when I'm doing poverty to abundance, I like to say, no matter where you've come from or what has happened to you, you can be anything you want. That's my quote. And you want to end your speech there. But opening with a quote, then people go, oh, Oprah. Oh, oh, Maya Angelou. Oh, Theodore Roosevelt. Whoever it is that you're quoting.
Dennis Coach.
Sorry, I'm in a meeting. Anyway, okay, I'm going to turn off my phone. I'll just have to use the computer. So anyway, look at quotes. You can go on to the computer and say quotes about business, quotes about women, quotes about clutter, because right now one of the biggest speaking points and subjects that people are making books about, you're not going to believe it, it's clutter. which I think is so funny, but we all have that problem. And so I think it's a universal subject that a lot of people are very, very interested in. So you want to go out and find quotes that suit what you're saying, or just an inspirational one for the very end of your talk. And so anyway, I love to quote Eleanor Roosevelt. I love to quote Charles Dickens. I love to quote Shakespeare. And remember, when you're copying people, he's giving you permission. Shakespeare says there's nothing new under the sun. We can just reinvent it, we can repackage it, and we can put it out. But there's anything new that hasn't been done before. Oops, I touched my mom. So anyway, now we go to number 5. I'm gonna stop the share for a minute and see where we're at. Oops, there we go. And share screen. Now we're going to go to number 5, which is your story. Most people start with their story. And what that is giving a backlog of why you're giving the talk, why you know about it, because it's happened to you and now you're the expert about it. And everyone wants a story. If I am watching a movie and there's no plot or not enough plot, I will turn it off. I want the story. And I've hardly ever spoken on a summit or a podcast where the organizer didn't say to me, tell your story first. Everyone wants to hear your story. So remember that. Your story is paramount. Your story is the most important thing that you can tell, and get them interested in why you're talking about your subject, who you are, and draw them in with the story. Make it interesting, make it dramatic, and give that first. And they will be enthralled and they will listen to the rest of your talk, whether you're going to speak to sell later, or you're going to inspire people, or you want them to hear about your book, or whatever it is. Now we're going to go to number 6. This is maybe the most important thing I'm going to tell you. Do not memorize your talk. Repeat after me. Do not memorize your talk. Memorization of a speech is death to a speech. What you want to do is to have a bullet list. These are my bullet lists right here. I'm going to stop share so you can see them better. This is the bullet list I had for a talk I gave about writing a book to help kids get into college. Real quick, you can see I can read it fast. This is a little bit more of an involved bullet list about a class I teach about the front end and back end of Amazon, and it goes on. And so I always write, sometimes I write even shorter bullet lists, just 1 word or 2 words per bullet. And that will keep you on track for your talk. My grandmother was so good at it that what she would do is she would do 3x5 cards, and she'd have them down here on her lap, and she would just glance down, oh yeah, talk about the speaking in DC. And then she'd do it. And the great thing about her was she kept up with the cards. By the end, she was on her last card. I have a bullet list, and usually by the middle of the bullet list, I get so excited about the talk and what I'm saying that I don't look at it again. But even if you miss a few of your points that were on the bullet list, know this, it was a good speech, because the audience didn't have the list and they don't know what you missed. I used to teach theater for 38 years, and I had to tell the kids, if you make a mistake, don't go, oh, because the audience doesn't have the script. So whatever your speech ends up being, it was probably great. Even if you miss some of your points, don't worry about that, because you already got through 1/3 or half of it. And once you've done that, you're home free. You're almost to the end. And that's what's important. So I will just give myself that little list to remind myself, oh yeah, talk about the length of books. And I go on and on because I know my material. You know what I'm saying? So that, which brings us to number 7, know your subject matter. And then all you need is that bullet list. Your bullet list is like just a little bit of a guide, just a little bit to go, oh yeah, I've got to talk about how easy and free it is on KDP. And then the next one, how to load on KDP. So it just gives me that little bit to keep me going in the line. And I try to make it very organized and in line. And that's how you don't memorize your speech, is you have the bullet list to just keep you on track. And you put it where they can't see it, of course. You put it over to the side. Now, some people I know, I've been seeing them speak with a screen in front of them. And I think what they're doing is looking at their bullet list or what they're going to speak about next. So it's right there. Oh yeah, and I'm going to talk about that now. And they get done with that subject. They look for their next one. And that brings us to PowerPoints, because a lot of times on a podcast, you won't be able to use a PowerPoint, for one thing. And summits, a few summits will let you use PowerPoint, some will, and some won't. Some want you to just talk, which also brings us to another point. If you have a choice at a summit to be interviewed or do a pre-recording, I would always choose the interview because it's more alive, the other person gets to talk too, and it's more relaxed, especially when you're starting out. I think that's really important. Even though I'm a seasoned speaker, I never opt to pre-record. If they ask me to pre-record, which many have, I will, that's fine. But I always choose to be interviewed. And they like that too, because they love to do the interviewing and it makes you popular with them. So that's the thing about memorization. Just keep that in mind. Now, the thing about knowing your subject matter, number 7, is either to speak about something you already know very well, or if you're going to speak about a new subject or something you need to look up, make sure you do your research and know it well enough that you can just say it without looking at a lot of notes. So just make sure you study, you prepare, you practice. It's very, very, very important. And most people are speaking about what they know. And a lot of times I would say, we're just being happy, chatty, friendly, blathering it out, which is fine, which seems like everybody wants that now. But if you're ever going to do a more polished speech, like a TED Talk or an action talk or a blue talk, then you would want to really rehearse it and make it more polished with pauses, taking in breath, and enunciation, and a lot more prep. And here we come to maybe the second most important thing I will ever tell you is practice out loud, number 8. Stand up in your living room and practice it to yourself. I often do it while I'm driving or when I'm walking. I take an early morning walk every morning for 20 minutes, and then I run my speech about 5 times during that, or when I'm driving. But speak it out loud, not just in your head, because I already told you the story about when I didn't speak it out loud. I got in front of a group, and for some reason I failed because my voice surprised me. So you need to speak your speech out loud, and maybe just have your little bullet list with you as you're walking or something, and just, oh yeah, DC, I got to talk about Jessie when she was with Carrie Chapman Catt and Alice Paul, or whatever the thing is. Then I'm off and running because I know my material. I just need that little spurt of reminder of what I'm talking about. So that's really important for you to unravel your tongue. We teach tongue twisters in theater. I also teach tongue twisters in speaking classes because it just unravels your tongue to be able to speak clearly, enunciate every syllable, and to put on a polished speech. Here we talk about the 3x5 cards again. And I might bring them next session to show you a set that I have saved from one of my grandmother's speeches. It was amazing that she could follow them to the end. I've never been able to follow a bullet list clear to the end, but my talks are always just right in the end. Now there's an anatomy, that's number 9. Number 10 is the anatomy of your speech. It's really important that you understand this. You want to have your opening, and it can be one of the most important parts of your talk, to grab their attention, to let them know you're confident, to let them know you know your material, to let them know you're going to speak on the subject your title talked about. And then you want to do the center, the middle of the speech, which is the content. So you want to do your story, maybe your inspiration, and then maybe you want to go to your speak to sell, and then maybe your closing. So whatever you're doing, you're going to have your beginning, then you're going to have the opening, and then you're going to have the center of the speech, which is the meat of the speech, and you're going to have your closing. And remember in the closing to put that beautiful quote in at the end to inspire people and to tie you to someone famous. I always, always do that. And so those are the 10 tips. I'll put them in chat, or we'll have them in chat later, that you can grab them for yourself and use them. And this is exactly the same 10 tips that my grandmother taught Eleanor Roosevelt and thousands of women all across America. And she taught me later, as she shared the podium several times with Gloria Steinem, Marlo Thomas, and Jane Fonda, as she took me along with her in Hollywood when she was in her early 90s. So those are the 10 tips. And then I want to show you a couple more things before we close today. So I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to go to my PowerPoint just to give you a few important things on how to get gigs and how to get started to use your 10 tips. So one of the main things is to reach out. I'm going to be giving in another session a complete list of places you can find gigs and podcasts and summits to speak on. And one of the big ones is if you could just write this down, join Event Raptor and put up your profile. And that way you can see people who are asking for you to join their summit or their podcast, or they may be able to find you and they'll reach out to you, which happens to me quite often. As I said, I speak once or twice a week for the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm sharing all of my getting gig secrets with you in this class. So don't be shy, reach out to everyone. One of my best places to speak when I want to sell books is to local groups, women's groups, political groups, book clubs, because when you speak in, everyone there feels obligated to buy your book, and often they'll buy them online before I talk and read it. They'll buy, I've done it where I've done a group and it kind of split up where some people read the paperback, some people read the audio, the ebook, and some people actually bought the audiobook. So and then I've been at other ones where I spoke in front of 40 women last year at a big country club, and every woman there bought the book. So it was like a big, nice chunk, of money coming in. And I love speaking that way. And sometimes I'm paid to speak. The libraries have a lot of money right now. So approach your local library. They actually have money to pay you to speak. It's not a huge amount of money, but it's a nice chunk. And so just reach out to everyone you know, get a list, ask other people where they speak, and work on that. And then you need to have your social media ready, because often when you sign up to speak at podcast or summit, they will ask you for all your social medias and your email reach and everything. So I always put those in one line in either a format on my desktop, or I have to store them in drafts on my email. And so they ask, some people will ask for them all in a line. So I just copy them all, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, my calendar link, and I'll just put them all in. Often though, most times they have them separated. We want your Facebook link. Okay, so go get it. Or your LinkedIn link. Go get it and put it in. But I always fill them all in because that's real estate and that's advertising for me. So, and they often will list those with your picture. They want your bio and they want a picture. And then they will do all this advertising for you and they will make these beautiful posters for you like this. I saved all mine in a file on my desktop. I have about 100 of these from different things I've spoken at, which I don't know why I'm not going to use them again, but I love keeping the memory. Oh, I spoke there and I spoke there and you know, and keep in mind that some of the summits will want you to pay and a lot of for free. So I kind of skim off the top. I do most of the ones I can for free, and then I pay for a couple a year, as I call it advertising, because the ones I think I'll get the most traction from. So, but anyway, so this is one I spoke on. Oh, you can see my subject: from poverty to abundance to something else. They didn't put the whole thing on. But anyway, so I save them all and I absolutely love having them. So next session 3, I'm going to really talk to you about how to use public speaking to promote your business, your expertise, your book, or your passion. Believe it or not, you're all ready to speak now if you do the 10 tips, if you rehearse, if you don't memorize your speech, if you're prepared knowing your knowledge, have your quotes ready, have your bio ready for the intro. If you do all of those 10 tips, you're ready to speak tomorrow. And the great thing about speaking on podcasts and summits, it gives you experience. And that's what you need. You need the experience under your belt to build your confidence. There's a place called, I think it's Podcast Match or Pod Match. That's another one to join and put your profile up. It'll be on the list. I think I'll hand out the list next week, next session. So just know you're ready to speak. And a lot of people, I help a lot of people write their expertise book to speak from, but I want to let you know a big secret about that. And I was working with one of my clients today on that. You don't need to have your book before you start speaking because you already know your material. You can start speaking on your subject today, tomorrow, and especially if you're doing interview style, which most podcasts and summits are, they'll lead you right through. You know how to talk about yourself. You know how to talk about your passion or your book or your business. You already know that. So go ahead and don't be shy. Sign up. Be prepared. Maybe have that beautiful bullet list that you will have, And I just love my bullet list. And remember, if you don't get through your bullet list, that's okay. And when you're talking to someone who is going to interview you on a summit or a podcast, remember they're going to want to talk too. So you need to speak for a little while. This is really important. And then pause to let them break in. And if they don't break in, keep talking. I had one interviewer interview me and he wanted to talk a lot of the time, which was great because he was talking about my program and selling me better than me selling me. And another woman said, "Oh, I love how you just keep going because I ran out of questions." And she loved that I could keep going. So you want to be versatile and flexible, and you have to kind of roll with the punches. And if they ask questions that you weren't prepared for, you know the answers. So don't worry about it. Just I always do a lot of deep breaths. I should put number 11 in that list. Often if I'm a little nervous about a talk, or even if I'm not, I will do some breathing exercises leading up to the time that I'm due to speak. And sometimes like for a couple hours before, just real deep breath in, deep breath out, slow out. And then I'm going to teach you something. Don't be embarrassed. It's a really cool technique. And if I'm going into a meeting with someone I'm nervous about, or I'm feeling a little nervous before I give a talk, which remember, being nervous is good. Once in a while, if you're not nervous, it might mean you're going to fail. So don't be afraid of your nervousness. Just be prepared. That's the main thing. But it's called the steam engine. And it is what takes away all of my anxiety and gives me breath inside. So you breathe in fast, out fast. It's called the steam engine. It's helped me get through some very sticky wicket meetings when I was running a huge theater and some talks that I was a little nervous about. And before I performed on stage, I've been a big stage performer for years and years, and I would do the steam engine before I went on stage, and my breath would just be with me, and I would perform. So anyway, I'll see you next session, and remember, you're ready to speak today.